Once upon a time, tucked away at the edge of a deep green forest, there was a small village. And in that village, in a little stone cottage with ivy growing up the walls, lived a widow and her 2 daughters. The older daughter was named Clarice. Clarice was, to put it plainly, a mirror image of her mother. They both had sharp tongues, meaning their words were often unkind. They were proud, thinking they were better than everyone else, and they were vain, which means they spent most of their time thinking about how they looked. Clarice would spend hours brushing her hair, demanding new ribbons, even when there was very little money for food. The younger daughter was named Marianne. Marianne was the exact opposite. She was gentle, patient, and had a heart full of kindness, just like her father, who had passed away. Their cottage was humble, but Marianne made it beautiful. She did all the work. From the moment the sun came up, Marianne was sweeping the floors, washing the clothes by hand, and fetching the heavy buckets of water from the well. She cooked the meals and mended their clothes. Her own dresses were plain and patched, while Clarice wore the best clothes even if they were just sitting by the fire. The mother loved Clarice more than anything. In her eyes, Clarice could do no wrong. If Clarice said something cruel, the mother would laugh and say, "Oh, she's so clever." But when the mother spoke to Marianne, her voice was always cold and sharp. "Stop daydreaming, Marianne." Marianne never answered back. She had learned a long time ago that arguing only made things worse. She believed that kindness was her only armor, dreaming of a day when someone might see the good in her. One summer afternoon, the day was hotter than any other. The sun was like a giant fiery spotlight in the sky. All the flowers in Marianne's garden were drooping their heads, bowed down, begging for a drink. Inside the cottage it was stuffy and warm. Clarice complained that the heat was making her hair frizz. Suddenly the mother realized the water bucket was empty. There wasn't a single drop left. She turned and looked right at Marianne. "Marianne," she called out, "go to the well at once, and not the close one. Go to the one beyond the orchard. The water there is the freshest." This was a terrible task. The well beyond the orchard was nearly a mile away. "Take the largest jug," her mother added, "and don't you dare dawdle. We are thirsty." Marianne looked at the heavy clay jug. She wanted to ask, "Why can't Clarice go?" but she knew it was no use. So Marianne just nodded. She quietly tied a thin scarf over her hair and set off down the path. The dust puffed up and little clouds around her worn out shoes with every step. Marianne walked and walked. The sun was so hot it felt like a heavy blanket. Her arms ached from carrying the jug, and the thorny bushes called briars grabbed at her skirt. By the time she finally saw the old stone well, her face was red and she was breathing hard. She was so tired her legs were trembling. She carefully lowered the wooden bucket deep into the cool dark well, heard the splash, and then began to pull it up hand over hand. The rope was rough and cut into her palms. She filled her big jug, but before starting the long walk back she sat on the stone edge for just 1 second to rest. It was then that she heard a faint shaky voice. "My dear child, might I trouble you for a drink of water?" Marianne looked up, startled. Sitting in the shade of a nearby tree was a very old woman. She was bent over and looked poor and tired. Her clothes were patched and she looked like she had traveled a very long way. Now Marianne's mother and sister would have ignored her, but that wasn't who Marianne was. "Of course, ma'am," Marianne said, her voice soft and gentle. "You must be so parched in this terrible heat." Without a second thought, Marianne dumped her own big jug of water, the water she had just worked so hard to get onto the ground. The old woman looked surprised. "That was for me," Marianne smiled, "but it's probably full of dust from the walk. Let me get you fresh, clean water." She lowered the bucket again, rinsed out a small cup she carried, and drew the coldest, clearest water. She held the cup carefully for the old woman. Her hand steadied and watched as the woman took slow, grateful sips. The old woman finished the water and let out a long, happy sigh. "You are too kind, my dear," she said. "Not many people would stop to help a stranger so sweetly. Most would have just walked by." Marianne blushed. "It was nothing, ma'am," she said. "You looked thirsty and I had water." "Ah," the old woman said, and her voice sounded a little stronger now. "But it is not nothing, child. It is everything." As Marianne watched, the old woman stood up, but she kept standing, getting taller and taller. Her old patched clothes began to shimmer and change. A bright, beautiful light like soft moonlight glowed all around her. In an instant the poor old beggar was gone. Standing in her place was a beautiful fairy. Marianne gasped and took a step back, her eyes wide with wonder. "Oh," she stammered, "forgive me. I didn't know." The fairy smiled and her voice was like music. "You have done nothing wrong, child. You showed me your true heart, and for that you must be rewarded. From this day on, every word you speak shall be a gift. From this day, every time you speak, a flower or a precious jewel shall fall from your lips." Before Marianne could even find her voice to say thank you, the fairy vanished like mist in the morning sun. Marianne was left all alone by the well, trembling. Was she dreaming? She quickly filled her jug again and hurried all the way home. Marianne practically ran the whole way home. By the time she reached the cottage, her mother and sister were standing in the doorway. At last her mother yelled, "Did you fall asleep at the well, you lazy girl? Give me that water." Marianne was out of breath and frightened. "Oh mother," she panted, "I'm so sorry." The rose landed softly on the dusty floor. Marianne stopped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her mother and sister stared. "What did you just do?" the mother demanded. "I met an old woman at the well," Marianne stammered, "and I gave her a drink." As she said drink, a bright green emerald and 2 white pearls rolled out. Clarice shrieked, "She's bewitched!" But the mother's eyes were wide and glittering, not with fear but with greed. "Nonsense!" she cried, scrambling to the floor. "This is a fortune." "Tell me everything, child." Marianne, still in shock, told the whole story, and with every gentle word more jewels and flowers tumbled from her lips, sapphires, rubies, daisies and lilies, until the floor around her looked like a pirate's treasure chest mixed with a spring garden. As soon as Marianne finished, her mother grabbed Clarice by the arm. Her fingers dug in tightly. "You Clarice," she said, her voice low and urgent, "you must go to that well, right now." Clarice looked up in disgust. "Me," she whined, "go to the well? It's hot outside." "That's a servant's job." "Don't be a fool," her mother snapped. "Imagine what your words will be worth. We will be twice as rich." The thought of being even richer than her sister finally changed Clarice's mind. "Oh very well," she sighed, rolling her eyes. She grabbed the smallest jug she could find, put on her best hat and stomped out of the house. Her mother ran after her. "Remember," she called out, "be polite. Speak kindly to any old woman you meet. Be sweet." Clarice muttered to herself the whole way. The dust from the path clung to her new shoes and made them dirty, which made her very angry. "This is ridiculous," she grumbled to the empty path. "I can't believe I'm doing this. My feet already hurt." Clarice finally reached the well, huffing and puffing. She was annoyed, hot, and her mood was terrible. Before she could even touch the rope, a figure stepped out from behind the trees. This time it was not a poor old beggar. This time the fairy had disguised herself as a beautiful princess. She wore a stunning dress of silk and lace, and jewels glittered at her throat and in her hair. Clarice stared at the beautiful lady, but she wasn't impressed. In fact, she just felt jealous. "Good day, madam," the fairy said, her voice sounding like royalty. "Might I kindly have a sip of water from your jug?" Clarice looked the woman up and down. "I have not come all this way to be your servant," she snapped. "Look at you, dressed in all your fancy clothes. If you're so thirsty, draw your own water." "I'm busy." The fairy's disguise didn't flicker, but her eyes turned cold. "You would deny a drink of water to someone who is thirsty?" Clarice tossed her head. "I came here for my own business, not to help you. Now get out of my way." The fairy stood up straight. "Then you shall be rewarded just like your sister. A gift that perfectly matches what is in your heart." "What nonsense," Clarice muttered. She filled her jug and began the long walk home, already imagining her mother's praise. When Clarice got back, her mother was waiting excitedly. "Oh my darling," she cried. "Did you meet her? What did she say?" Clarice tossed her hat on the table. "Oh, it was fine," she said, trying to sound bored. "Some silly overdressed woman asked me for water, but I sent her away." I told her. Before she could finish her sentence, something awful happened. As she said the word away, a fat green toad with warty skin leaped from her mouth. It landed with a wet splat on the clean floor. Clarice screamed. The mother shrieked. "What was that?" Clarice cried. And as she said that, a long slimy snake coiled and hissed from between her lips. "Stop it! Stop it!" Clarice yelled. But with every angry word more creatures appeared. 2 more toads, another snake. The mother didn't blame her own greed. She turned all of her rage and fear onto her other daughter, Marianne. She screamed, "This is your doing, you and your wicked magic. You've cursed your sister." "No, mother, I didn't." But her mother grabbed a broom. "Get out!" she shrieked at Marianne. "Get out of this house. You have brought ruin on this family. Get out and never come back." Marianne, her heart broken, ran out the door. She fled toward the forest, tears streaming down her face, leaving her home behind forever. Marianne ran until she couldn't run anymore. She collapsed at the edge of the forest, her whole body shaking with sobs. As she cried she whispered, "I have nowhere to go," and a small sad pile of forget-me-nots and tiny pearls formed at her feet. She had been crying for some time when she heard a new sound, the sound of horses and the jingle of a bridle. She looked up and saw a grand carriage approaching and a young man on a horse beside it. He wore the king's royal crest. He saw Marianne crying by the side of the road and immediately ordered everyone to stop. He slid off his horse. He walked toward her. "Young woman," he said, his voice deep and kind, "are you in trouble? Why are you all alone in the woods at this hour?" Marianne looked up at him. She felt she could trust him. "No trouble, my lord," she whispered, "only sorrow." The prince gasped. "What miracle is this?" he asked, his eyes wide with wonder. He had never seen anything like it. He sat down on the log next to her and asked her to tell him her story. Completely enchanted, with every word more beauty appeared. The prince knew he wasn't just looking at magic, he was looking at true goodness. "You must come with me," he said. "My father the king must meet the maiden whose very words are jewels." He stood up and offered her his hand. Marianne was nervous, but she took his hand. She was taken to the royal palace, a place bigger than her whole village. When they arrived at the grand hall, the king and queen were on their thrones. They looked confused to see the girl in the simple torn dress, but then the prince introduced her. Marianne curtsied low. "Your Majesties," she said, and as she spoke 2 giant perfect diamonds rolled across the marble floor and stopped at the king's feet. The whole court gasped. The queen's eyes widened and she whispered, "Surely heaven has blessed this child." The prince, who had already fallen in love with her gentle heart, asked his father if she will have me. "I wish to marry her." The king looked at Marianne and smiled. "So be it. A woman whose words bear flowers will surely make the entire kingdom bloom." And so Marianne became the prince's bride. Her wedding gown was beautiful, and wherever she walked her kind words scattered blossoms. The people loved her not for the jewels but for her goodness, which spread from the palace to the whole kingdom. But what about the one she left behind? Back in the village, life became miserable. Clarice could not speak without a toad or snake appearing. No one would come near her. Even her mother could not stand it. "You have brought shame on us. Leave," she finally screamed. Clarice fled into the woods, friendless and unloved, and was never seen again. As for the widow, her greed was her undoing. She lived alone, clutching the jewels Marianne had first brought home. She died all alone, her heart as cold and hard as the gems she loved. Marianne and the prince, however, ruled for many years. Their kingdom was known as the happiest in the world, a place where people learned that true beauty fades and wealth can crumble, but a gentle, kind heart is the only treasure that will shine forever.